do believe everyone should pursue whatever you are passionate in. Just follow that passion. Even if you're not good at it for a long time, don't stop doing it. Just continue to do it. Whatever it is, cooking, art, making clothes, whatever you love to do, singing in a heavy metal band, go do it. Just enjoy it, because the enjoyment builds the confidence builds the audience responds to that confidence, and you respond to the audience.
What's up, everybody? It's Ojayy from Ghost Coat Mag. I am here with Cliff from Dry Kill Logic, and also an old school band I know from many moons ago called Hinge. How are you doing today, brother?
Good to see you, fella.
Shoot, man. Let's see. I forgot about the name change because it's like, oh yeah, I forgot. Yes. When you were a Roadrunner, when you got to Roadrunner, it became Dry Kill Logic. But from before then, it's like, I just thought you guys from just being around the chants and that whole Hudson Valley and down in the city over here, because I'm a city kid, so I know you're from over here. So I was like, oh yeah, the name change. It's like, that was a moment for me to we were like, wait a minute, they got signed to Roadrunner and now they changed their name. It's like Roadrunner's gobbling up everybody at the time. You're in that conglomerate where they just are. We felt like as other friends, we felt like you guys kind of just got gobbled up because they just gobbled everybody up, but they didn't know what to do with anybody. They didn't want anybody else to have anybody, and you guys just got sucked up in that shit. But hey, you got a cool record out of it, so you got to respect you for that one.
That was a wild time, man. That whole name change thing was quite a fiasco. I mean, in Roadrunner's defense, I suppose we hadn't really cleared the fact that we could be that officially anywhere with anyone at any given point. And there was some overambitious copyright holder that owned it in the category. And, possession is 9/10 of the law. So you're essentially, negotiating against yourself at that point. To get to a yes. And after a certain amount of rounds, it was just clear this wasn't something that was going to happen. So quick shift into Hinge AD. We thought maybe we could abbreviate it and that would be enough. Turns out it was not. And we needed to get into a full name change. So thankfully we had the name in our pocket. Phil, our drummer at the time, had discovered it years or so before, and we just didn't really think much about it. And then when we needed one, we were like, hey, well, what's that name again that you had?
Okay, yeah. I was going to wonder, how many other names did you have? What was your second choice of names?
Oh, there was none.
There was none.
The proverbial no plan B. It was like, hey, what's that band name thing that we read in the book that time? And we were able to remember it. So
awesome, man. But I have to during this, I had to just do the whole deep dive of your catalog just to refresh the memory and knock off the old cobwebs. Back to Pork Chop Sandwich. What was the number 3? I don't remember what it was. A Burger King. It's like, don't want a Big Mac, but you want the number 3. What was the number 3 back then?
I'll tell you, it's a funny story. All that song in particular was written by Phil. The music, the lyrics, all of it. And he was such an exceptional, or still is, such an exceptional music talent that he used to write all those songs on his own as a kid. And when we heard him, he just had all these tapes and he played them for us one day. And he's like, hey, this is like when I was a kid. And it was just hilarious. And became one of those things was like, wouldn't it be funny if we covered one of your original songs and put it on a CD? And that's just kind of how it came to life. I could not tell you the meaning or the translations or the impetus behind any of those lyrics. Those unfortunately are not mine, but I'm sure there's got to be a meaning out there somewhere.
Good save. It's like, I didn't write it.
A lot of that Hinge early stuff, was we did write that all together, but that specific skill set fully belonged to Phil.
Like a lifetime ago. So I guess we're at 30 years. Technically, you've been at this for a little over 30, because we got to remember, before anything was recorded, you had to start somewhere. So what made you start singing?
Oh gosh, you're right. I mean, hardcore since 94 is really when it began, and I started as a drummer. I was not a very good drummer by any means. And, to be a drummer, you have to have some real talent. It does require skill and stamina. two things I did not have, still do not have to this day. So we realized pretty quickly that it'd be easier to find a drummer than a singer. So we were able to find a drummer to fill in initially when the band started, and I moved over to singing. I mean, I enjoyed it, but we were essentially a cover band. We were barely writing our own songs. I mean, we were, just kids in our early 20s at that point, and we were just discovering writing and being creative. And over the time between 94 and 2000, when we signed with Scrap 60, we released, a few different EPs, just toured up and down the East Coast anywhere that we could play. We had an old crappy van. And, we just kind of figured out who we were. And that culminated in the Roadrunner deal. And then, where we are today. So
I haven't heard the name Scrap 60 in a minute. Is that Rob Caggiano?
Rob Caggiano,
Yeah.
Eddie Wall, and Steve Regina were the original three. Yes, yes.
Now the New York area is full of such, like, in that time frame, everybody had such a awesome circle, man. Like from like 95 to 2000, I'd say, like, good 2005, just to be nice. That whole era was like, you had the Westchester, the whole Poughkeepsie area, and then you had like everybody come down to the city. So like you guys in Pain Mask and all those other cats from all that whole era. I've played up there in bands back in the day. So like that was like that whole, your hometown was like my stomping ground when I'm
Oh,
walking around the
you're
city.
right. I mean, I remember Blindside from up in Poughkeepsie back in the day. They were awesome. They used to come down and play 7 Willow Street. So it was like the Chance, 7 Willow Street. Then you had the Globe in Norwalk, and you had Toads in New Haven, and just became this kind of tri-state circle, and that's when you weren't doing something out in Long Island or Lemore's in Brooklyn or, any of the rooms in the city. Like there was a vibe back in the day. You had awesome record stores, you had, radio stations that supported the underground scene. You had venues that put local bands on. Like, you had an ecosystem. It was pretty awesome. And if you were out there working, you could be seen.
Yeah, like I remember every record company had like a street team at some point. I remember any show, you'd have a bunch of kids outside with flyers, and some of those friends, that some of the people I knew who were doing that became like actual like executives and like started their own labels, and they're doing pretty well for themselves. But it's really cool that just giving out a flyer leads to something else, and then just
Yeah, I
seeing
mean,
how
just the
people
act
don't.
of like putting up, staple gunning flyers to telephone poles in the dead of night. That's a rite of passage. That's an exercise. You have to. I was doing it back then. So
And it's pretty cool, man. It's like, yeah, but now it feels like you guys have grown to such a different animal, like, per se. Like, it's like, all right, cool. Like, yeah, there's a lot of growth between like every record. And it's like, oh yeah, because I look at your last bunch of releases, like I'll just talk about the last 5-6 years, like, I call it the long ass EP to me, because it's like you release like one song every other year or so, and each part has like a different vibe, and it's like I forget, like I listen to the music and then your voice kicks in and it's like, oh wait, this is the same dude, like you have like a lot of different sounds to your voice, and just overall you guys have like hindsight sounds like old school, like, early 2000s Dry Kill Logic and stuff, but like Vices sounds like something completely different, as well as the new song, like how, like Now We Belong with the Dead. It's cool. It's like, the singing threw me off for a second. I was like, oh wait, it's still him again. Because it's like that intro. Like I'm used to the growly voice, and there were some cool melodies in there. And it's all those last 4 songs have some really cool melody. And to me, it's like, oh, it's a nice little mini EP that you guys just released one song at a time over the last 5 or 6 years. And it's like an extension of Vengeance and Violence, because it's the same lineup, and that was 19 years ago. It's like everything. If you look at, I'm just looking at the years and things sometimes, and I just kind of jump around. It's like, wow, it's like pretty much all of us have kids that are probably as old as your records.
You're right. That is the exercise. And listen, I appreciate the kind words, right? I'm glad that people still gravitate towards the music and still respond and still feel like they're listening to the same band that they're familiar with, whether it is more familiar with the Dead and Dreaming or Vengeance or the Darker Side of Nonsense, right? So like the fact that we're still in the conversation as like we're the same band you remember, just writing new music, That part's awesome because it'd be very easy after 20 years for you to be like, oh, well, you guys haven't learned anything. Clearly, you guys haven't been a band for a while, right? So the idea that the music still stands now and then and all works collectively, that part's important, and we're grateful for that. If you look at the albums and you think about, even the first record, right? There's a lot of melody on that album. And yes, you have, the obvious stuff like Good Night, or Pain, or Feel the Break, but there's also a lot of melody in track 13. There's a lot of, dissonant melody just in some of the screams. So we've always tried to, again, just, as long as we're recording songs that we feel really good about, that constitutes what we're willing to release out into the world. But at the end of the day, it's that comparison and contrasting. It's the thoughts around the music that we find most interesting because, at the end of all of this, the audience is the one that determines whether they enjoy that music or not. We like it, we think it's awesome. We're comfortable with releasing it. But, again, if the audience doesn't think you hit the mark, you have to take that into consideration. So for us, we just try to, again, just stand in service of the song, be comfortable with the stuff, feel good about it. We had to play it live. And, we believe that that's the right approach for folks to appreciate it as well.
You just completed like a couple weeks ago. You just did your first show in since 2006 or 7 around there.
First show in the US in 20 years since 2005. Last show we played was 2006, but that was in Europe. So 19 years since the live show, 20 years since the US live.
That's a hell of a gap. And how have you kept your voice strong all these years? I know you had a break from there, but basically you had Vices and everything, but between Vices from 2006, how did we keep this tool of yours sharp?
The anger's still there. The fire still burns, right? So the ability and the desire to want to express myself in similar ways still exists. I think there's some things that I notice that maybe audiences don't, but I certainly do. I think the timbre of my voice is a little bit higher now. I'm not driving around in a van playing 6 shows a week for a decade and smoking 100 blunts a day and just kind of wearing myself down. I spent 15 years not singing, 20 years not singing. So I would say to some extent my voice is healed. And you probably hear that more in the register of my singing, which is on the higher side than maybe some of the other melodies from the previous records, which might be a little bit lower in register. So like there's some nuance to it. But again, I think to your point earlier, having the nucleus of the band since 2006 still in place, we're still writing music that sounds like the last time you heard the band. It's not like it's just me or just one guy and there's a whole new influx of talent and perspective. The musical sensibility is essentially still the same.
Yeah, it's interesting. Some bands, they either can do the safe route and like, oh, we need to sound exactly like people remember us, but I feel like you guys, to my ears, you guys have taken 4 different chances, 4 different swings and wrote 4 different songs that still at the core sound like the same band. But if I didn't tell somebody, if I played, like I said, hindsight, somebody would like, oh yeah, this is Dry Logic. All right, sounds right. But if I said, oh, this song is Dry Logic, they'd be like, shut up. It wouldn't, because there's some things in there that, I wasn't expecting. And it's nice to be surprised.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So what made you guys want to work with, what did Greg Thomas bring to this for you guys?
Greg's awesome. We met Greg, or I met Greg through Brendan, our bass player, who was in 100 Demons and 1,000 Falling Skies and has really been a part of the scene, for years and years and been a part of a lot of accomplished bands. And he's known Greg. They both are from the Connecticut scene and they both know each other. They've worked together previously. And when we started to write these singles, he recommended Greg as a, potential partner to help us bring these to life. And, we met him and we're all huge fans of End. And, we think he's just an amazing guitar player and, songwriter. So to be in a room with somebody that you really respect in that way is one level of amazing. And then the idea that he's such a great producer and not only knowing how to take your songs and bring the best out of them and you, but also put you in a position where you feel comfortable enough to be able to produce at your highest. And that is probably the hardest part of band producer new interactions, is getting everybody comfortable to a place where they can be their best. And Greg was so gracious towards us and really just put us in a position to be successful musically. And it left us kind of coming away from the sessions really energized, especially this last one. We were very close to him on, it's probably the closest we were to recording with him. We recorded everything together. We were very, we worked very closely together as a band on all of the aspects, and we just all left feeling really good about it. So for us, it was just such an amazing experience that we're excited to do more. We're just, again, to have that level of engagement with somebody that you respect is, it's just a great thing.
I get that. Like, I understand how hard it is to find people you feel comfortable with, that if they make you feel comfortable in the studio, that's, I don't want to say it's like the safe space, but it is a place where you are very vulnerable. It's like all your, flaws can be seen very clearly. And if you're ready for it, you're ready for it. If you're not, oh yeah, some people need a little massaging to sound great, and some get it like in 1 or 2 takes, and it's like, oh yeah, that was so easy,
Right. And and that's the thing, right? Because you have an opportunity to look at it as, hey, I'm doing something wrong, like, and I need to be in a position to defend that, or you can say, whoa, I have an opportunity to do something right. So let me now like absorb this and take this into account and then reflect it back. And I think that's a much more powerful position to be in. And you can only kind of get there if, you're invited into it and it exists. And I think that's what just part of the magic that Greg brings. So again, we're just super thankful to have him in our corner helping us with the music. We think it shows.
I've worked with producers that don't know how to bring out the best in you. They're just kind of, you're a seasoned veteran producer and you're not, it's like, okay, you're just a name, you're just hired for the name. It's like, you didn't do anything. You didn't help. Like, hey, I'm having a little moment here. You're not helping me get past this moment. You're just like, all right, we'll work around it. I was like, cool, but help me. That's the last resort, but help me, like, hey, you need a minute? Yeah. Talk to me. Help me just get out of my own head so I can just play the best of my abilities. And sometimes it's like, oh yeah, like the red light syndrome happened to me once. And it was like, oh, it's like, I was playing fine before you pressed that button and started recording, but I don't know what happened.
You're right. And again, it's just that confidence and the ability to feel like it's okay to be vulnerable. And great producers know how to do that. So we're just super thankful, man.
Yeah. I think Will Putney made it sound amazing because he's Will.
Yeah,
Putney.
Will put a crushing master on it. It's like you get it to a place, and Greg and Will obviously, are very tight and have a great relationship. And he's like, listen, I really think Will can bring out the right sound for this, in that final mastering stage. And yeah, I mean, we're just really happy, and to have folks of this caliber working on our music, man, it's just a dream, and we're just so thankful for it.
So now since it's 2025 and not 1995 or 2006, how was the song written? Like, are you guys, I don't know how close you guys live to each other. Is it the old school way of let's go together, get a jam studio, or check your email, here's a riff?
In the beginning, when we started to get back together, we started writing these songs in 2016, and we hadn't written together for 10 years. So we got together in our old studio space in, Westchester County in Mount Vernon, and we started to just hash out riffs. And, the best parallel I can offer is that it's like an old computer that you plug in and turn back on, and you're like, I don't know if this thing works or if it's even fast enough probably doesn't have the right ports for the monitors anymore. It doesn't even hook up to the Wi-Fi, but I know all my pictures are in here. So like, I got to get it to work. Right. So like for us, we were like that old computer, just seeing what was working, seeing what wasn't working, but we started to write again. And we came up with, we wrote and finished Vices and Don't See Ghosts. And we had the framework for Now You Belong with the Dead. And so we had those songs, we released the 2, COVID happened. And then when we had this opportunity to start playing live again, we said, this is a good time to finish Now You Belong with the Dead, so we have new music. But I think that these songs are a reflection of that era of the band, that 2016, 2017 reforming, deciding that we could write anything that we want. So what type of music do we want to write? And the first song that we wrote was Vices. We wanted to write something that felt very close to who we are and what we wanted to be and the things we wanted to say. And then we moved into Don't See Ghosts, which felt like an extension of that, going in some different directions and trying some different things. And then, the framework for this, and then really putting it together over the last, year or so, probably started in like October of last year, and then, finishing it up by March. So maybe about 6 months. But yeah, I think that those songs represent an era, the same way of Vengeance and Violence is an era, and the same way the albums are. We just didn't have a larger body of work. And moving forward, I can't say that it'll sound the exact same. I mean, maybe it'll sound like we'll write the next 10 songs and you group them all together, and that could have been a record. I don't know. That's not the intention, but I'm sure that hopefully, like if we do continue to sound the same, we don't become an alt rock, cut time country gospel band, then, I think it'll sound like a body of work, hopefully a cohesive body of work.
Well, the best part is, like I said, you guys, there's a clear evolution, and that's a good thing, because it's like, yeah, you could have, I don't want to hate, using the AC/DC metaphor for a lot of bands, like, oh yeah, but a lot of bands, it's like, oh wow, they sound exactly like they did before they stopped playing X amount of years ago, and it's not a good thing that they sound exactly the same a decade or two later.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, listen, we try to. I mean, we just stand in service of the song. We just want to write the best song possible, and we're cognizant if we feel like we're treading into something that we've already done. Like, oh, didn't we do? Haven't we been here? Like, haven't we? So again, we're cognizant of that, and it's no indictment. I don't begrudge anyone that creates anything. Art is subjective, and I don't know any. I don't know. I don't claim to know anything. So it can be whatever it needs to be. But I think for us, we just always try to be like, what would be crazy? What haven't we done? Like, what's still something that gets us like, whoa? Because right? Like when you're in with your friends and you're writing, the bandmates, people you're closest with too in this creative space. Like when you hear someone write that riff and you're like, or you hear that drum beat, like, whoa, play that thing again. Play like that whole act. That's the fun. Like that's it. There's nothing else, not even the stage. None of it matters. Being in that room and hearing that thing and having your brain switch on creatively. It's like the crystal ball starts to swirl and you're like, whoa. Play it again. Keep playing it. Like that to me is like the hit. That's the dopamine hit. When I walk out of that room, that's where I'm like, this is awesome. So that's again, we just stand in service of that emotion.
Totally. Speaking of like, this is awesome. How did it feel being back on stage after 20 years? Like, I'm sure there was like, the butterflies before you walked out, like onto that. So you're on the side stage and you're just like, oh, all right. Gotta psych yourself up. Did somebody have to like give you a little push?
It's like the whole thing was just wild. I mean, we've never, the only kind of like festivals that existed in 2000, whatever we were a band, any of those years were the touring ones like Ozfest or Mayhem or Warped Tour, or the standalone European ones, right? Like Whack-In or Walk-In and whatever it's called, and all those other ones. And we never played any of those. We were just never considered for them. So like when the opportunity came to be a part of these lineups, we were just like, whoa. And it's one of those things where your initial reaction is like, how are you gonna do that? And then the next immediate overriding emotion is, how are you not gonna do that? So then begins the conversation around, oh my gosh, what's the work that needs to be done to be able to walk out on that stage and not completely fall apart? And then it becomes an exercise. But through all of it, I think, at least for me, I was always kind of able to disassociate and just say, like, that's months away. If I just focus on what I need to do today and focus tomorrow on what I need to do tomorrow, I don't have to be overwhelmed or become anxious with oh my God, what's going to happen? So I was always able to be like, it's later. And even on the day of the show, everybody leaves to go to the stage because it's kind of far away from the artist area. And I was like, dude, you have like an hour and a half. We have like 90 minutes. And they're like, Cliff, it's going to take you 60 minutes to get to the stage because you have to get driven around. You got to get around the thing. And I was like, oh, I guess I can't say I have any more time now. I'm officially out of time. Let's go. And then I started to just be like, all right, well, let's just warm up and let's just get ready. And then, you walk out on stage. But I think if anything, I really have a profound level of respect for touring artists of any age, of any ilk, of any style, because you work muscles that I have long forgotten how to use. And, the exercise of becoming reacquainted with performing, again, you realize like when you put the work in, you really see it on the output. And I think about all the bands today that I love that just are great. And I'm like, yeah, you work for it. There's no shortcuts to this, So excited to just continue the cycle and continue to get better and, and just enjoy it.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of working with my old friends, my old buddies from back in the day. God forbid. So
Oh, nice.
I've been hanging out with them on their last couple of reunion shows, drum teching and doing photography for them. So it is nice to see like, oh yeah, like watching these guys get ready for. Watching these guys get ready for their like, all right, hey, we're doing an anniversary of this record. All right, we're gonna play the whole record. All right, cool. Here's a set list. All right, now let's just play it front to back or back to front, whatever. And if we got room for another one or two, they do it, And and they're fun. They're like at the point where you guys are like they want to they're working on stuff. They had a couple shows this year. We're doing a couple shows with Life of Agony later on.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a run with LOA coming up, right?
Yep, in September.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. I love God forbid. They were those dudes just put in the work too, man. I remember they were everywhere. They did that tour, I think, in 2004 or 5 when they were out with Machine Head in Europe for like just months on end. And I remember thinking like, what an awesome tour that must be. Just going everywhere, doing everything. Like they were always a band that seemed to be like out doing stuff we just would have died to have been doing. And love the music, just profound respect for the band and all the years. So when I saw the LOA thing, I was like, that's awesome. Like that's cool to see.
Yeah, it's nice to see that they're not as jaded as one would think. And neither are you.
So many years go by, I guess, you just I can't speak to them, but we never really, we didn't go on hiatus because we had any sort of, bad things, interpersonal dynamics or any sort of overarching problems. Just the musical landscape was shifting and you needed a team behind you to be able to achieve success. You needed a great manager, a great agent, a record label that believed, the publicity team, you needed a team. And, the cards just weren't dealt in our favor after 2006. We weren't, we're still very close. We still all hang out and, it just wasn't in the cards for us. And that's fine. I mean, what are you going to do? Right. It's like, yeah, we had far more success than perhaps we ever deserved. So you can't get mad at it. It's just, that's what it is. And that's what it was. So to be here now is just, it's just awesome. Just again, like the overwhelming emotion is just gratitude, to be fair.
I understand that because I feel like, hey, you know what? It's like I have one record. I have one record out in the world. So I understand the work it takes to put a record out and to have 3. That's awesome. It's like you just still can't be mad at it. It's like it's better to have a record than no record. So
seriously, the body of work is impressive to do that. That's really awesome.
Speaking of, that show and shows coming up as of this recording next week, I believe it's next week, you have 2 shows coming up. You got 2 local-ish shows. You have a show in Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Monarch, you're playing there, and you're playing Dingbats, celebrating 20 years of The Dead and Dreaming.
Yes, sir. I mean, it's a wonderful milestone. When all of this, started, we were thinking about, we're returning to these bigger shows and a part of these events. And, we were just thinking about where we've kind of come from and the opportunity to play some of these headline shows and really dive into the nuance of the set list and being able to play some cuts that we'd never really played live back then, some songs that have never been played live in the States from A Vengeance and Violence, some of the new stuff. So we're just like, man, that would be awesome too, to just be able to play a lot of music, more than just kind of the traditional festival slot allowance, again, which is fine. that's no indictment either. We're happy to play whatever time is allowed to us, but to be a headliner after all this time is also really interesting and a special opportunity because folks have been living with this music for a minute. And it's not like, hey, like the last time when The Darker Side of Nonsense was only a couple of years old and we were just out for the first time on The Dead and Dreaming. And, I didn't know if we'd have another record coming after. So now, all this time later, it'll be really awesome just to see everybody enjoy the music. That part's just special. So again, the whole thing holds a lot of different emotions in different sizes and in different spaces. And we're just excited to experience it all again for the first time. Not to be very cliche, but it was, there is a first time to all of this that we feel, even though we know it's not, obviously.
Time gives you that perspective and clarity that it makes you appreciate, or just like, all right, it wasn't so bad. Like 20 years ago, oh, this was the worst thing ever. I can't believe, oh, why'd I sign that? Why'd I work with this person? It was the worst experience. And it's like, all right, it wasn't so bad. Like, I remember I had a moment with an old band member, and like it ended like really bad. And I was like, oh no, and then like we were reforming the years later for like, we are trying to do it again. And I was like, oh man, if I ever see that dude, I'm going to punch him. I'm going to punch him. And then like one of those random moments, I'm just like on the street in Queens, and I like sneezed and I turned around and he was right there.
Oh my God.
And it was like, hey, what's going on? It's like, and all those feelings of anger, it's like, yeah, I haven't played with you or seen you like in a decade. Hey, how are you? As a human being, it's like, we're still alive. It was a nice
gift, right? It's like, so at some point you just let it all go.
So I'm throwing it out there for my own personal curiosity. Are we going to have any of the old school members show up to these shows?
I mean, not that I'm aware of, no. So I didn't get the memo, but you never know who will be there, I guess. But no, there's no like special performance like appearances or anything like that. No.
I really wish the Chance was still around, because I feel like this needs a third show in that region.
Oh, I love the Chance, man. I would absolutely love to play the Chance one last time. We did some great shows up there, and that place was an institution. I loved it. I loved the Chance.
Yeah, that was for the people who weren't in Brooklyn or from the 80s. Like that was like our Lamores, basically. I felt like, if you weren't a city kid at like CBGB's or Coney Island High, that was the next big, oh, I could play the Chance. It's like, I'm playing with a real band? Holy cow,
Crazy, right? And that's how we felt about 7 Willow Street in Portchester. Every band that wouldn't be able to play in the city or didn't want to route through the city, that didn't get hit with a radius clause, they would all go there. So all these bands we would open for that became huge. It was just like just all these bands. Like it was just crazy, from Exodus to like Cold Chamber to Motorhead to, and you're like, what are you talking about? You opened for Motorhead in 1997. It's like, yeah, I don't know. I know. I don't know. I don't know how it happened. But it was just wild. So to your point, man, those are the things I think that make a scene. And if you don't have that, it's very hard to have a local music scene, because you need people that believe in all the different formats, or at least back in the day, you needed a local record store that would take in your CD and sell it for you on consignment, because you're playing the big venue down the street, because the local radio station has an overnight that plays local bands and you're the number 2 local band in the overnight. You need that to keep it moving. And if you have it, it's very powerful. It can move a whole community. I don't know what the equivalent is today, but in 1996, those things were definitely necessary.
Oh yeah, it's again, because like I said, my guitarist at the time, he went up to Sony New Paltz, so he was a radio DJ at the Edge, so he'd play all the metal stuff. So like, oh yeah, he introduced me to so many stuff, because he had all these CDs, and I was like, we'd always check out all this cool, like that was the first time I heard Judas Priest was from him. Like he had Jugulator, and he was like, yeah. I was like, oh, this is, I know that's the weirdest record to get into. It's like, all right, whatever. Like I got into X Factor. Hey, with Iron Maiden, I got into X Factor. Then I had to backtrack with these other bands. So when you get in is when you get in, and that's how I feel.
It's the truth, right? Exactly. You can't be beholden to that. That's just when you get in. But as long as you understand it once you're in it, then you've done the work.
Yeah, you guys. I saw your old flyer of you guys played with the Misfits. Was that the Michael Graves version or one of the other Michael singers?
No, I think that was the Michael Graves version. That That's another great one that I completely forgot about until you mentioned. It's like, yeah, those that Misfits. I think it was God, who else was that? Was that Orange 9mm? Was that?
Yes.
You know, they're another awesome New York band. I remember we played with them and Anthrax at Irving Plaza and Grinspoon. It was us, Grinspoon, '09, and Anthrax. And I remember, I'll never forget, we walked in and like some angry crew guy had just discovered there was a local opener. And I remember we walked in and the guy was like, who the put a local opener on? And we were like, hi, we've never been here before. And the guy's like, bah, you know, walked away. But I just remember being so impressed with Orange 9mm. Ever since then, we all love them in the band. Oh, so great.
They're doing a show. Like, unfortunately, you guys
They
have
just
played.
did one. Oh no, it's this weekend. It's the same weekend as ours. Yes,
Same weekend as yours. Yes, they're playing the day after when you guys were in. I think it's the day after. I don't know. It's a weird 2-day thing to celebrate another New York promoter who passed away this year. We lost two great promoters in the New York City area, Rich Hall and Kevin Scandato. Like, these two legends for introduced to getting people together and getting people at shows from those days. Man, I'm just glad that we're still above ground, and it's like now it's nice to it's really nice to revisit and check out all this music again. So I'm glad I got to get this interview with you, because it was like, oh yeah, it's like I haven't listened to your music in a long time, and I was like, oh yeah, and then it's like, oh wow, you put it on and you just that smile starts creeping in. It's like, I remember this. And I was talking, I was like, yeah, I'm ready for Dracula Logic. Gee, wait, remember Hinge? It's like, what? Wait, somebody one of my old bandmates reminded me about the whole Hinge connection. I was like, oh yeah, that was their name. The whole name changed. I remember because that was a thing. We're like, why'd they change their name? Roadrunner did it. They made them do it. That's what Roadrunners do it.
Roadrunner was not happy. We had to change our name twice. Boy, oh boy, they were not. By the third name, they were like, all right, guys, well, pick a personality here. What's going on?
So after that, we have after our New York and Brooklyn shows, we have 3 more festival appearances this year so far.
Well, that's going to be it. This is the year that we have in front of us. We're just going to take it slow and steady. So we're going to be in RockFest in Cadott, Wisconsin on the 17th of July, then Inkcarceration on the 19th of July in Mansfield, Ohio. We'll have August and September home, where we'll, regroup and start to just collect ourselves, enjoy the summer. And then we've got Aftershock in October. And then from there, we're going to be home. We're going to start to think about new music, and, hopefully we'll be in a similar situation next summer with a new body of work out playing again, and have a larger commitment to, a long play album.
Okay. So I figure out, I was wondering if you guys were going to go the route of, here's 4 songs, here's a little EP, and just keep it going. And I'll just keep dropping EPs. Cause you've seen the landscape has changed from the old days, as how records used to sell to how they sell now. It's like, oh, a physical copy, oh, this is cute, right. And it's like what are you gonna sign? You can't digitally sign your headphones or your it's not even an MP3 player anymore. It's like I can't sign your iPad. It's like, oh, it's like I'm gonna sign the back of your cell phone.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? I'm less bullish on the idea of it must all be one collection released at the same time than I am bullish on the idea that however we determine the right way to release it is, we just need the body of work. It needs to be completed as a body of work so that we can say this era of creativity consists of from here to here musically. And then from there, a team of people that we trust, that we work with will come to the right conclusions alongside of us on how we should do that. What are our ambitions? What are our plans? Is there a way to think about consumption in a different manner? Or is the industry just geared towards to get people's attention? You must have a full album versus, I don't know. These are the questions I have for the universe. So, but I'm interested in learning. And whatever whatever consumers want, whatever an audience wants, right? Give me a couple of songs, let me live with it. Then play some shows, for Christ's sake, and then give me some more music, and then go play some more shows. I'm into that. I'm into that instead of just release an album and go do a bunch of things that, to your point, things come and go very quickly today. So how do you make it meaningful for everyone, not just for us, but for an audience that has a lot of things to consume in their life? How would you like to consume this is probably the right place to start. So, but I do think it's our responsibility to get the body of work together, and that's what we're committed to doing once these festivals are over.
Cool, cool. I'm excited. Maybe I'll see you next week. I gotta
I hope
see how I
so,
could
man.
ring it in. I'm not that far from Brooklyn, so it'd be good to like
Well, then
have a.
officially you've got no excuse, and it's on camera and recorded. So, folks, he lives close. He's already put it out into the universe. The universe will have him on the list if he shows up. The only question is, does he walk through the door? Maybe next time we talk, we'll have that conversation first.
I'll just cut this out of the interview when I'm editing this.
How dare you?
Oh man, dude, this has been so much fun, man. I appreciate your time this evening. Thank you so
Oh,
much,
thank you,
bro.
man. Thank
I just
you.
got a few more I want to run by you now. So, yeah, well, we're of the same age-ish area range. Now we all have a lot of us have kids. How do you talk to your kids about music nowadays? Like, hey, go ahead, play music. It's fun. You should do it. Or are you more like, do something else? It's not, you know. How do you like? Are you like more encouraging or like be careful about this business?
Well, I don't have kids, so that's number one, right? So I have no responsibility to anyone other than myself. But I
That you
do
know of.
have plenty of nieces and nephews and a whole bunch of family that is interested in music. And, as they get older, they're learning about art and culture and how to have a creative side of your brain. And that part, I do believe everyone should pursue. Whatever you are passionate in, just follow that passion. Even if you're not good at it for a long time, don't stop doing it. Just continue to do it. Whatever it is, cooking, art, making clothes, whatever you love to do, singing in a heavy metal band, go do it. Just enjoy it, because that's the enjoyment builds the confidence builds the audience responds to that confidence, and you respond to the audience, right? Like it's all cyclical. So if you're confident because you do it and that just comes with the work, people will see it and appreciate it, then you'll feel good about it, then they'll feel better about it, then you'll feel better, right? It's just all in the work. So hopefully that answered the question.
Dude, like, yeah, I think you did. You think you answered it, man. It's like, and I feel like music brings so many people together. It's like there's so many experiences and people you would not have met if it wasn't for music. And then music has such a like a lock on people's emotions. And then like it takes you back to certain times, certain songs trigger certain memories. It's like, oh man, like I remember, this song takes me back to here. I have this like personally, I have this totally weird song, Lady Hear Me Tonight, that Mojo song. Like whenever I watch that video or hear that song, it reminds me of the video because the video is like a bunch of teenagers, just driving around with a map, trying to just like live life in the early 90s. And it's like, oh yeah, I remember life before cell phones and just wow, remember those just driving without a phone. And, I remember going to the chance, like I said, going to the chance, taking the Metro North upstate. And it's like, how am I getting up here without like a map? It's like, oh, take a train, we'll meet you. Oh yeah, you can walk from the train station there. It's like just doing it all gung ho like it is. It's a trip.
There's a great quote, and it's by Basquiat, which makes it maybe even more profound. Art is how we decorate space. Music is how we decorate time. And when you start to think about those essential and emotional connections you make with those moments and the audio that underpins them, and right, in those times in your life and the emotions that you felt, you realize that it really narrates a time in your life. And I think that has probably been very kind to us over time, is that when you think about Dry Kill, you think about 20 years ago. To your point, you start to smile, you reflect on yourself, you hear the songs, you remember the good times, and then the proverbial rose-colored glasses, right? Like you start to look back on everything fondly. And, again, for us to be a beneficiary of that in any way, we're very thankful for it. But, that only comes with time, right? You never know that these things will happen in that moment when you're beating against the walls of life, trying to find a way in. It's just really interesting to reflect on them now and think about what it means,
And there you have it, Cliff of Dry Logic. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for this time. It was very fun just eye opening. You drop some knowledge bombs on here, and just you're a great you're a great person to talk to tonight.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I had a blast, man. Always good to catch up about all the things, especially anything Westchester related from back in the 90s, man. There's a very small audience of folks I can have those conversations with. So it's awesome to have it with you, my friend. We've made it through. We made it through those times. So it's nice to reflect on them now.
If I come to the show, maybe I'll.
What do you mean if? What do you mean if? What is this? If? Go on again. What is this if? You're already committed. The name's on the list. I emailed my tour manager while we were here. It's a done deal. It's a done deal. So when you come to the show.
All right, better hear a Hinge song somewhere or a riff or two.
All right.
That's too much. That's too crazy.
Can I just get through this year? I got to learn. I got other songs to learn. I can't remember everything. There's too many words.